Hello and welcome to this industry webinar presentation from Eon Reality. My name is Mats Johansson and I'm co-founder and CEO of Eon Reality. And I would like to start with a little bit of background about our company. We are a leader in VR and AR based knowledge transfer, and we've been working for 17 years primarily in industry and education with a focus on vocational. This is a little bit about Eon in the news from our launch of our new Mexico partnership for delivery and development of AVR applications. This is done as an interactive digital center, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Let's start and look a little bit about our AVR software platform. And this is comprised of a platform that helps you develop, run, manage, access, store, host, and distribute AVR applications, where you can seamlessly switch from AR to VR mode. And it's comprised of a core, which is in the bottom middle here, where you can deliver a content library. And in case of industry, it will be one of our clients' equipment, gadgets. You can then consume this in either VR mode using standard devices or augmented reality using phones, tablets, or wearables. In terms of hardware, we're completely agnostic from Eon. So you can decide which hardware platform you would like to use or the use case dictates. Everything is delivered through the cloud or a secure network. You can have multiple users, which is key for training, and we'll see some examples of that. And we also allow our clients to brand the whole platform delivery as their own brand. On top of this, you can get more advanced features like LMS link, analytics, artificial intelligence, geoposition, etc. And we also have an extension of advanced development tools on the lower right here. And these are the expert tools where you can build any type of applications using Eon Professional. You can program extensions using our SDK. And we'll talk about a use case with ExxonMobil where that was very central a little bit later on. And then on top, you have three applications. One is Eon Creator that allows non-expert users to build, annotate, and create quizzes, training scenarios in a very simple user interface. This is on the difficulty level of PowerPoint, I would say. Virtual Trainer, this is an application that allows you to connect with gaming VR devices and a remote instructor to deliver training or education. And then we have AI knowledge injection that allows you to bring information from IoT, cloud, maybe organized by AI into an AR, augmented reality deliverable. So this is a lot in this slide, and we'll go into each one area a little bit later in the presentation. In terms of Eon, we have built a global footprint. We had since we began the company in 1999, we worked with a lot of multinationals, larger companies, and that enabled us to create a global footprint to support them. And as part of this, 4 years ago, we created something called the Interactive Digital Center, IDC. And this is now in over 20 locations around the world, and it has a school component or innovation academy where we train VR and AR experts. They spend 1 year in our program, and they can after that go into the content factory or the studio at each IDC and continue to develop content and applications, or they can go out and work in industry. Each IDC is a sustainable business that develops services and applications around VR and AR. But it also is a global distribution network that supports our customers and implementation around the world. And especially on the high end of VR equipment, that becomes very, very critical. This shows the footprint a little bit today for Aeon Reality. Let's switch gears and talk about knowledge transfer problems as we see them in industry. And there is a multitude of them, and we've captured a few here. Cost is definitely, a big issue. There's a lot of resources spent and time on travel, training, and also maintaining quality. Complexity, equipment gets more and more complex, and life cycle for equipment shorter. So we see this from our customers that they often struggle keeping up to date and playing catch up when it comes to supporting skilled workers on new equipment. Risk, companies cannot effectively train for the wide variety of hazardous situations employees might face. And of course, VR is something that can help address all of these problems, so we'll see a little bit later. Quality can be a big problem. If you look at traditional classroom training, you don't get the hands-on experience and kind of the problem-solving skills that you can get from hands-on learning. It's also difficult to assess. We know that technicians learn best by doing, and if you can assess them as part of the doing process, it becomes a lot easier to standardize and evaluate which skills they exactly have. So let's talk a little bit about our AVR solution in this context. Before I jump into this, we have two main parts of the applications we work with at Aeon. One is VR simulation-based learning. So this is training at the back office using maybe today a VR HMD gaming device like HTC Vive or a high-end system like an iCube. And if you do this right, you can learn faster, remember longer, and make better decisions. And I'll touch on some studies that have been done supporting that. The other big part is relatively new, augmented reality-based knowledge injection, where you can get contextual real-time information in the field. And as we see, especially the wearable glasses developing extremely rapidly at the moment, in the next 2-3 years, there will be a revolution there where you can really serve up all this information right in the field. And we think it's going to affect virtually every industry out there in a big, big way. And we'll look at some work we've done there in the past year. And of course, there is a service component, customizing content and the application for each use case. Let's talk a little bit about evolution of delivery methods. This is a roadmap that was developed together with one of our clients, and we'll look at a little bit here how these different aspects come into play. So at the low end of the scale, we have kind of traditional classroom, virtual classroom, and we have e-learning, and we have traditional simulators, which is used in a lot of industries. Think of flight simulators, but it might be a drilling simulator, it might be a patient simulator if it's healthcare. And then we have augmented reality that's starting to come into play in a big way, as I mentioned. And we see the VR and AR continuum touching all of these delivery methods. So if you look at the classroom, we have solutions like HTC Vive or iBench systems that allows nice integrating into the classroom environment. You can extend your e-learning with the 3D learning modules directly integrated via SCORM or XAPI into the LMS. You have more flexible virtual reality simulators. And on the high end, this could be something like an iCube, an immersive room, where you can do training for mining or industry. We'll look at some cases there a little bit later. And the beauty of this iCube type simulator is that it's very flexible. You can serve up new content very quickly, while a traditional simulator is more rigid. It does one thing really well, but if you want to go outside that realm, it's more difficult. And at the top we have the AR with the phone, tablet-based, or 3D glasses. And we saw, especially in the last 12 months, a lot of our industry clients getting very, very serious about this, and they, in many cases, share our vision, how you can reduce cost, risk, time spent, and it has a big impact on the business. And it also integrates very nicely with other trends like cloud computing, IoT, artificial intelligence, as we'll see later on here, looking at some use cases. A little bit about what we can expect using AVR for industry knowledge transfer. One thing that we've seen in many studies is that you can achieve faster learning. And I think that this has a lot to do that we, with a VR application, for instance, we can get very close to how you do it hands-on in the real world versus perhaps a classroom delivery or a case study or a video. And with that, you get better knowledge transfer, faster learning. You can provide real-time contextual knowledge injection and serve up information right there in the field instead of having to go to a terminal or kind of leave the work environment. Safety is a big driver in many of our applications, and it can be as simple as going through the mandatory safety briefing before you start work. But we can also simulate dangerous situations that you couldn't train in the real world even, and of course in VR, you can do that completely in a completely safe environment. Greater engagement. This is something we see especially with younger workers, and I think we'll see that accentuated with millennials. Attention levels go up. And again, I think as they get more used to where social media, for instance, is today, we see trends that applications like Facebook, Snapchat, all have components of augmented reality in a big way on the roadmap. All social media systems do. And if you can't provide that type of experience, it's going to be difficult to motivate future workers. Assessment, this is a really big one. One of the beauties with either VRA or delivery is that you can build in assessment into the application. And you can, as we'll see, integrate it closely to your learning management system or enterprise system, so it can be stored. You get the certification in a very, very clean and non-partial way. Okay, let's take a look at a use case. And this first one here is going to be a virtual reality use case. It's something we call virtual trainer. The use case we're going to look at here is a health and safety application for a kitchen with a trainer in a remote location that guides the trainee in another location. The trainee uses a HTC Vive, so low-cost VR hardware. The trainer using a standard laptop or a tablet to administer the training. So let's take a look at this video.
During this demonstration, I'm going to play as the trainer, who's going to connect to one of our trainees, who is going to be in another simulation inside the HTC Vive. As a trainer, I'm going to be able to look around their environment and monitor what they're doing, and even see through their eyes. The trainer is going to connect through a web interface. On the web interface, they'll have their own account with their lessons and their tasks that they have access to or have created themselves. This demonstration is focused on a demonstration that we did for McDonald's. The procedures I'm going to show you today is the Frying Master filter cleaning procedure. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start this procedure by opening it up, and it's going to launch Eon Studio Viewer. So the first thing that we can see on here is that I've got Chris's facial avatar and his hand controllers. Right now we are following him around the scene and we're looking at his interactions. Before we start the task today, I'm going to just talk through this interface. On the top left hand, we have the list of instructions Chris needs to complete to pass this test. On the second panel all the way down, I have a list of objects which Chris needs to utilize to complete this task. On this panel, I will have options to either hide an object, to highlight an object, or to focus my personal camera on the selected object. We also notice I've got this call box down here. I'm communicating Chris using voice over IP, something that is built into both simulations, so no external application is needed for me to communicate with Chris. The first thing I'm able to do is actually move around the scene myself. I can focus in on any object and any part of the environment. I also have some camera controls that's available to me. I can lock the camera. This prevents me from accidentally moving out of position if I'm focusing on a particular part of this task. I also have a reset camera position, which will return the camera to its neutral state. Okay, Chris, what we're going to do now is I'm going to take you through the procedures for changing the filter system with PrimeMaster. One of the things I'm able to do is switch the view to Chris's eyes. Right now, I'm looking at this environment as if he is. So, Chris, the first thing I want you to do is go to the left-hand drawer of the fryer.
Left-hand drawer. Okay.
To make this obvious to Chris, exactly which fryer it is that we're going to be working on today, I'm going to highlight this door for him. By selecting highlight, we now have visual references on both applications of exactly what it is I'm talking about. This application combines two-handed and one-handed interactions depending on the object that Chris is interacting with. The door, for example, is a one-handed interaction. Chris, could you mind opening this door for me?
Sure thing. There we go.
As Chris has opened door, we can see now the first step of this task has been highlighted green with a check. This tells me that Chris has correctly opened the door. The next thing I want you to do, Chris, is can you pull out the filter tray, please?
Okay.
The filter tray requires two-handed interactions. Chris will need to grab the tray from either side and pull out the drawer. We've also got communication that this has been completed. The next thing I want you to do, Chris, is the crumb tray.
The crumb
This
tray.
is also known as the filter pan. If I've highlighted that, Chris.
Okay, so we've seen a couple of steps here, and I think we'll exit there. These videos are available on YouTube, or you can request them later on and we'll share them. But the key is here that you have an integrated remote collaboration training solution. And this is a framework that we've developed. It's very easy to populate this with different equipment, different gadgets from a wide variety of industries. And we've seen this use case in manufacturing industry and so forth in many areas, energy as well. And a little bit about how we populate the environment. So for education, we have a library of standard objects that you can use. You can, of course, add to this. For industry, we can easily integrate and import CAD models and 360 video. For instance, in addition to CAD, it can also be scan models and other types of models like that. Once this is implemented, you can use the framework to set up the training scenario using Eon Professional, and you can highlight things, hide things. You can set up the different steps of the specific training. We chose HTC Vive as a delivery mechanism here because it's a low-cost VR device. And of course, you can use any type of VR device to deliver this. But that's one that's quite popular for web-based training. And I had the pleasure of presenting this as a trainer during a recent presentation in Iowa. And from a network standpoint, in that example, I connected with a colleague in the UK, and it was done through a 4G tethered network. So it requires very limited bandwidth to work just the way we saw it in the video here. In addition to that, the EON app, through an integration layer, integrates with your LMS, learning management system, either via SCORM or XAPI, and also with your enterprise system. And the first couple of use cases we've had have been around Oracle and SAP, but it can be any type of enterprise system. EON is agnostic there. So that's important. The other part that we're going to talk about a little bit and see some example is AR-based knowledge injection and provide information directly to the user via an AR interface. So now we switch from VR to AR. And as we've seen in this case, and I mentioned this in the beginning, this is kind of a cross-section between other types of data, like IoT data. Maybe you use artificial intelligence to organize the data and communicate with the user. And you often use 3D or annotations overlaid in the AR interface to the technician or the trainee. And we'll see an example of where we did this with both IoT and AR. There are many different wearable devices that are coming on the market. The one we show here is the Microsoft HoloLens. Other examples are ODG from Osterhout Group, which we've used in many cases, Epson, but almost all of the big technology companies are developing some type of AR capability, and we think over the next 2-3 years we'll see these wearable devices maturing significantly and having an impact very broadly in industry as it becomes a very natural way to interact with all this data that's provided. And it's really about linking together, all these sources of data in a natural way. So here's an example of a project that we did recently, and let's take a look at the video which explains the use case as well.
The VP of IoT Architecture for Zumtobel Group and Tridonic, which is one of our 5 brands. I'm here to show you the power of the Internet of Things and how lighting can become the backbone for IoT. To do this, we partner with augmented and virtual reality experts, EON Reality. We've made some proof of concept applications that we want to show you today. IoT can tie in with multiple services, and one of the technologies we're going to show you today is how IoT and augmented reality and lighting all works together. Use cases for this could be commissioning, for example. Our commissioners use several days sometimes on configuring a building after it's installed. Another thing is maintenance. Both preventive maintenance and live maintenance will help us find problems faster and keep operations of a building running faster or continuously. And the third part I'm going to show you is how we can personalize your user experience and control your lights directly with augmented reality.
We're very proud from EON Reality to partner with Zumtobel and Tridonic on this very innovative augmented reality IoT application. We know from EON's side that knowledge worker will use augmented reality as a very natural interface to help reduce training time, commissioning time, and as we get these IoT-based heavy data applications, it will be the natural way to work with it. We're using the Aeon AVR Enterprise platform to connect, on one hand, IoT data with a visual representation. And with this platform, you can very flexibly develop applications for various industries, various situations that requires augmented reality and IoT. We've seen in many studies that you can save a tremendous amount of time and money by using AR as a much more natural interface, reducing training and commissioning and so forth.
Hi, my name is Armin Bastani, and I am an IoT systems engineer for Tridonic. And I'm here to show you basically what's happening behind the scenes of our IoT plus AR demo. So this is from Zumtobel, and essentially it's a drop-in replacement for traditional lighting in an office. This actually fits. This is a surface mount version of a different version that can be put into recessed office lighting situations. And basically we've made two fundamental changes. On the front you can see that we've added a pattern that is utilized for the AR app to do facial registration. And it can uniquely identify this luminaire itself. So basically here's the rear side of the Morel Evolution, and it's basically we have a standard 110 volt AC-DC driver for driving the LEDs, and we've augmented this with a wireless mesh networking control. Essentially this is a 0 to 10 volt control signal, and we receive commands from the network. This unit actually has an IPv6 address, so technically you connect it to your network and you should be able to see this light anywhere in the world and control it. What you see here is the rest of the relay output for the driver and also the 0 to 10. Well, the cool thing about this is that basically, because you are actually getting an actual IPv6 address, it means that it's compatible with every other thing that's on the internet. That you can talk to it, you can have it talk to something else, you can have it upload, say, energy usage to a central server. You could have, say, individual light controls for each person that has one of these above their desk. It just opens up a whole bunch of new possibilities and applications because we are using standards technology.
Okay, so that was a knowledge injection use case using AR. And the information the technician showed here via the tablet interface was real-time information from the cloud through this IoT solution. And the bars here depict energy consumption. And we can see that you have very low energy consumption over the weekend and then higher in the beginning of the week. We also saw another use case where you had an abnormality during one day with the device performing at a hotter temperature than normal, and it could then be drilled down and pinpointed to the hour. And by doing that, you can maybe make conclusions about something in the environment that affected this, or maybe with something with a faulty equipment. For commissioning, you can imagine a warehouse distribution center that has several thousands of these luminaires, each with an IP address. And of course, putting on your wearable AR glasses and going in, it can identify each light, each IP address. You can commission and set them up much, much faster than you could do in any other way. Okay, let's talk about the third component a little bit, Aeon Creator. So this is the knowledge builder. We know there is a tremendous amount of need for content out there, and everything cannot be developed by the expert. So we built this simple to use creation tool where you can, even on a phone like it's depicted here, if your CAD model is set up correctly with the correct naming conventions, you can very quickly bring this in and start to create a lesson, a quiz, a scenario, and then publish it to your employees or to the world if you want to. And you can very easily switch between VR, AR, or even touch mode, as we see here, to go through a scenario. You can add voice overlays, videos, quizzes, training procedures. So there's a lot you can do with this. And if you're interested to dive into this a little bit more, I recommend that you download this from the App Store. It's called Eon Creator AVR, and you can try this out for yourself and look at some examples, including this turbine that I have depicted here. So let's talk a little bit about a couple of other use cases. So this is one use case from industry with Rolls-Royce. They are using this at their UK Innovation Center, and they're using both the Enterprise Virtual Trainer as well as AR knowledge injection in this case. Another one is just recently we worked with Hitachi and published in conjunction with the Hannover Messe an application for their Lumada IoT AI solution. And it's a little VR app that goes through use case and functionality. So it's called Lumada VR, and you can download this from the Google Play or iOS Apple App Store. And while you're there, you could also just search for Eon Reality and see a number of applications in different areas and explore at your own leisure. And if you have a Google Cardboard, you can even experience them in VR mode. And you can also use an AR marker that's provided with the app to explore in the AR mode. A little bit what studies show. This is an example that we have from one of our clients in the mining arena. And this was a study they did on their own. And one on the left here is an AR use case. And the procedure they selected here was a shank adapter change. And compared to their classical normal training, their expectations is time cost savings in excess of 90%. So tremendous impact here. I don't think every use case will see this kind of impact, but it will be substantial. If you think about it, you're removing at some point when these wearables mature and develop, you can remove a lot of training centers, travel time, training time, and really deliver it out in the field. One example could be in automotive dealerships. Instead of the technician going to get trained on the new model at a training center, they can get it right then and there in the facility. Or maybe they're working on a legacy product that they haven't seen before. They can get that information as well. So AR will have a big impact, no doubt about it. The use case on the right is a VR training simulator using iCube technology, in this case, immersive room. And there the potential, and this was for a drill rig operator, the time and cost savings exceeded 60% in this use case. Not quite as large, but again, fundamental impact on ROI. There are, of course, other ROIs we'll talk a little bit about, like knowledge transfer is very important. We've seen studies that using VR has helped improve test scores by 35% compared to classroom training. We've seen retention 12 months after training delivery using VR be 80% better using VR versus other types of delivery. And again, attention levels is another ROI that's quite important, we think. With that, let's take a look at a few use cases and discuss them a little bit. This is a snapshot of part of our customer base at Eon. Atlas Copco, this is a configurator, online configurator. Contains well over 1,000 different products, compressors, dryers, filters, and it's used to configure the AirNet, which is the air delivery system between the compressors and the tools or the paint equipment or whatever you're driving it with, or a hospital for that matter. And this is used by technicians, installers, even salespeople around the world in Atlas Copco. It's been deployed, localized in 8 different languages, currencies, And as you do the configuration, you also get a bill of materials, so it calculates cost, installation time, and even critical design parameters like free airflow, pressure drop are calculated right within the system. So that's a interesting use case. Here's another one, an IoT application that was developed for GE. And this one you can also go to the App Store and explore. This is called Predix in Motion, and you can go to Google Play or Apple iTunes and download this, and you'll be able to maneuver a submersible and fix a problem with a subsea installation based on AR overlays with data and addressing different issues. There's also one that is a rescue operation and one that's more a medical use case. Festo, this is a VR training application. We teamed up with Festo in Germany to develop a aquatronics trainer to train water technicians around wastewater facilities. And here we used gaming HMDs, Oculus HTC Vive, to deliver standard training around the plant, but also train scenarios like flooding when you have bad weather and you have to take precautions to avoid sewage spills, leakage, and so forth. And together with Festo, we were awarded at World Skills in Sao Paulo an award for this application, and it's been deployed in a number of technical colleges and training facilities around the world. Aerospace is a big application area. Here we see an iCube, immersive room, and the student here is doing a pre-flight check. And by the way, you can also go to YouTube or let us know at the end. I will share the videos from this presentation. They're all available there. Other training applications that we've developed together with Temasek Polytechnic, and they train a lot of students for different service centers in Singapore, like Lufthansa Service Center. We develop modules around gas turbines, flight dynamics, for high-end immersive systems like iCube, iBench, but also mobile devices lately, which for the most part, the mobile component touches most of the applications that we get involved with today, one way or the other, either as a complement or as the primary driver. BP operator training. This was an operator essentials trainer that we developed for an LNG plant. And the idea was to take a small learning facility and virtualize it to be able to deliver this to many, mostly newer employees around the world to do procedures such as isolation reinstatement, also called lockout tagout procedure. You start with a walk around, familiarize yourself with the facility, you do a safety check, and then you go into the procedure and learn how to isolate the part of the plant so you then can do a maintenance procedure safely. ITE, here we'll take a look at an iCube application that was developed for offshore lifting operations and safety procedures. Let's take a look at that. Here we see the crew. They stepped aside here because the weather conditions weren't conducive, so you can simulate different weather conditions. And here we see before the lift there's an inspection that's being done, and we can see some things are not correct here. So the hook is not latched or secured properly. So we're going to ask our co-workers here to go in and take care of this. And if you're attentive, you see on the left there is a torqued strap, twisted strap. If we hadn't adjusted these things, the load would actually have fallen down in the IQ with a big bang. So you can also make that kind of visual feedback. And then, of course, you're assessed, like we talked about. So here we did pretty well in this one. Here's another use case that we developed for a project in Ethiopia to train truck drivers on basic diesel mechanics. And before we did this, they had done this at a very high cost at training centers using real equipment. And we were tasked with developing an AR application. You're going to see the tablet here. And deliver this to a large number of truck drivers on standard networks, standard mobile devices, and tablets. And the beauty is that we were able to deliver the same type of training at a cost of about $3 per trained person at the end of the day. So fun project and very successful. There was also a study that was done together with our partner that assessed the trainees and how they learned faster, how they the motivation of the trainers, and we're happy to share that if anyone is interested after the presentation. Rio Tinto. So together with Accenture in Singapore, we have developed a number of applications in the mining industry using everything from iCube technology that we see up here on the right to more gaming type VR devices. And applications include things like wayfinding, which is a big challenge in a mining system, to different technical procedures, safety. And we've been able to see, again, a lot of these benefits that we've talked about in general and in this use case as well. And this is done at the Accenture Rio Tinto IoT Center in Singapore. Here we have a case study we're going to dive into a little bit deeper. This was done together with ExxonMobil over a number of years, and it's a 3D operator training system. And in a nutshell, what we did is that we integrated a console operator simulator system together with a VR environment. So we were able to drive the scenarios from the console simulator, which is a technology that's been around for many years, and it's used to train console operators in the control rooms. With the system, we were able to tie together the technicians in the field with the console operator and provide a very dynamic training environment. Think of it a little bit as a flight simulator, but for training oil and gas operators in a VR environment. In 2015, as we wrapped up this project, we were also awarded a license to commercialize this technology from ExxonMobil. And we've been doing that for education, vocational education, and the industry since. And this can be applied for not only LNG or petrochemical, but also for pulp and paper, for electricity production, any type of process industry really. The same approach can be used. And one of the reasons why ExxonMobil was so interested in this is that they, like we see in a lot of industry, we have this aging workforce that sits on a lot of skills, and they're either exiting or about to exit the workplace. And we have a lot of new people coming in, and we simply can't spend the time we used to achieve mastery for an electrician or a technician. And VR was deemed to be one way to really help aid this speeding up of knowledge transfer. So again, the background is basically tying together console operators with the field operators and being able to train the whole team, which hadn't been possible until this was developed. It's cost prohibitive to dedicated plant for team training. Once it's in production, it rarely stops, except once every few years for a turnaround, and then it's up to production.
Reality 3D immersive environments to develop a simulator that can be used to train, operators or young engineers joining the oil and gas industry. This system is great because you can basically train on a specific scenario, do it over and over again in a safe and controlled environment without having to worry that, you're going to actually cause an issue in the plant.
That was one of our colleagues at ExxonMobil showing one of the use cases, a simple compressor room tied with a simulator in the iCube environment, so a high-end immersive environment. Later on, we've also ported this to gaming-like low-cost VR devices, like we've seen a few other examples here. And again, what this does, it connects a console simulator, which you see a snapshot of here, with a VR environment. And the console operator can then initiate a scenario from the console, and the trainee has to respond in the VR environment, where you can simply monitor what's going on. If the trainee trips an alarm, for instance, in the VR environment, the console operator would see the same. So it's a bi-directional communication. And you can apply this on any size plant. In fact, we did, towards the end of the project, we developed this model for one of the largest gas plants in the world. Probably has 10,000 interaction points, push buttons, levers, meters that are fully interactive. We've also recently developed standard components. This is more for vocational education and providing things like a separator, crude oil, furnace, compressor, binary column, etc., which are standard components you can find in any plant, and you can train on these very easily at a very low cost compared to any alternative out there. A lot of benefits with this system, including localization. You can get quick recovery, turnaround planning. You can use the VR environment to train this. Critical procedure execution, new projects. You can start to train. Maybe you have a new plant coming online. Not unusual. You have to have local labor. A lot of training has to happen in a short amount of time. Well, you can start this training before the plant is built. Better maintenance, new higher orientation, and so forth. Okay, we're almost done. I'm going to wrap up a little bit with why we think it's so important to think about VR and AR solutions now. And if you look at what the analysts are saying, the market is growing very quickly. It's definitely fueled by video games, social media, on the VR side by video games. And this study here from last year showed about a third of the market by 2025, I think this is, being video games, but the rest of the market, engineering, healthcare, education, is significantly larger. From Gartner, they think that within the next 10 years, smart glasses will outsell smartphones. And if you look at what the big carriers, Verizon, AT&T, are doing in the next 2 to 3 years, they have AR glasses as a big component on their kind of future outlook roadmap. Here's another study. This was done by Goldman Sachs, and if you have time, you can watch the video. You can Google it or let us know. We'll share it. But the key thing here is that they think, and we really agree, that the majority, up to 85% of VR growth, will come from non-gaming sources. And if we look at enterprise applications overall, we've seen a tremendous uptick in interest and growing very rapidly. So I think everyone sees the writing on the wall, so to speak. If you break this down, so they believe that by 2025, this is going to be a $95 billion market. About half will be hardware. Some studies now say AR hardware is going to grow more quickly. Again, I don't know. We have to listen to the analysts, I guess. But one thing I think that's correct here is that about half of the business is going to be software, and that's where the big need is. A lot of investments are going to hardware today, And besides simple capture, software and applications is often overlooked, but it's actually the most important thing for the end user. And whether it's AR or VR, about half of the market will be dedicated to software and applications. So just to round off, we really are big believers that there is a big looming market, whether it's going to take 3 years or 5 years to really step up, I think will depend on the development of wearables. The indications we see are very, very promising. The one we're showing here is ODG, one of our partners. They have a form factor that's very light. It integrates an Android processor in the device, multiple cameras, sensors, and see-through. So a lot of the things that we're looking for. And we'll see with this, especially as the cost go down, we'll see industries like, for instance, construction that has limited support of IT today becoming standard. And I think, as I mentioned in the beginning, we think almost any industry out there will be impacted by this over the next 5 to 10 years. And again, AR is the natural way to provide all of this data from IoT, cloud computing, artificial intelligence. And as humans, we need something in front of our eyes to really be able to decipher all this data. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.